Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a short review for those interested. This was a very quick and done game. G2 have a wonderful draft. First, the question that comes into my mind was the Trundle third pick. It was kind of odd, but it's something that worked super well. So if you look at Trundle, usually you want to pick it into tanks, you want to pick it in the mobile champions. Sure, they have one, Aphelios. You can use the Trundle pillar to block Nautilus Q. You can do some shenanigans. Maybe you force Nautilus to itemize differently. He wants to go for that Gargle Stone Plate. This is something that, Trundle is fine for. Cool. Next thing is Aatrox third pick. So Aatrox third pick is a very strange one. Most of the time, you can pick it 4-5, right? You go into ban phase. In Alfari's case, he had a wonderful performance against Rogue on Aatrox, which is maybe the reason why. But I think this is a sign of, weakness almost, because most of the time Alfari was looking at Renekton blind pick. Aatrox doesn't really fulfill any specific purpose. He's just okay at everything. And I think if you are putting yourself in a position where you're picking something that is okay, then the enemy champion is going to be better than you most of the time. This Trundle pick, if, in consideration here, if you don't pick Aatrox and OG look to lock in a jungler instead of Aatrox on third, then I think they would be better set off, because GP is an option, Renekton is an option, and Aatrox is an option if you want to look for AD blind pick champions, and then you can pick that AP champion. Ornn ban makes sense because you most of the time G2 would lose fourth pick Ornn here. It's the best, and also the enemy team already has Trundle, so you don't want to look to pick any tanks. You don't want to give Trundle more value, of course. Coming into second wave, Azir and Lee Sin gets locked in. So Xerxes on Lee Sin is something that we haven't seen that many times. I think Lee Sin is the type of champion that really requires a lot of effort and finesse, in order to be pulled off. Because this champion, I can agree with the notion that it is a Sinnet champion, but those that can play it at the highest level scale good playing Lee Sin. It's a scaling champion on the players that play it super well. Over here in Europe, the players that come to mind is Shadow, Jankos, and of course Selfmade. In other regions, you can think of Klid, you can think of, whatever, right? There's some junglers that are really good at Lee, and those are the junglers that scale well because they impact the fights regardless. Having the pressure of a kick in the team fight is super huge. But in this case, Lee Sin has very little to play on. Maokai gets locked in fourth, which means that the Aatrox pick is going to be even more useless, because the optimization of Maokai is going to be so easy. He's going to itemize armor, and he's not going to be under any dive pressure at all. So what is the purpose of Aatrox in this game? He's not going to be good into the matchup. He's going to be 20 CS ahead, but what is that going to matter at all? It's not going to make an impact for the game at all. Then later, he's going to look for flanks, but it's going to be difficult for Ezreal Yuumi to find them unless they massively screw up. So Aatrox doesn't fulfill a purpose. Sometimes it's better to take a worse matchup in order to impact the game in a proper manner, right? So I think OG, the best plan they could have gone for is to just third pick jungle. Third pick jungle, I don't have a problem with Aphelios Nautilus because they are quite decent into Yuumi Ezreal. They have prio, they will be able to impact mid lane, they will be able to do things. As we continue, Maokai is fourth pick. So already the first four picks, G2 have champions that are very good at the later part in the game. If these champions reach 15-20 minutes, their mid game is going to be absolutely brutal, right? Origin, looking in Azir here, once again, what is the purpose of Azir? Azir doesn't die to ganks. Azir kind of highlights that you're not looking to play 2v2 mid lane that much. You're looking to, scale into the game and dodge ganks. Azir is a fantastic blind, doesn't have that many terrible matchups, but Azir will not impact the map, will not impact the game in any significant way unless he's super far ahead, right? So in this case, Azir gets locked in with the purpose of trying to dodge Trundle ganks and to kill Maokai later on. Understandable, but against the four champions that you're picking it into, you're going to get outscaled. Ezreal, Yuumi, Maokai is always going to outscale an Azir, unless Azir reaches 6 items, but even at that point, Ezreal, Yuumi are too slippery for Azir to deal with. Ezreal in the past historically was always the best AD carry to lock into Azir because of his superior range and his mobility. So if we think of other champions they could potentially pick, the first things that come to mind is Rumble. You can look to pick Rumble. You can look to pick LeBlanc to match with Lee Sin. Sure, you're going to have problems dealing with Maokai at a later point in the game, but this is not the point that you want to reach anyway because the enemy has Ezreal Yuumi. So the key thing for OG to look for here is to find something that packs enough punch in order to impact the bot lane that is going to have that much prio. Aphelios Nautilus is the only option of gameplay they have here, but even if Aphelios Nautilus puts them in a position where they 2k gold ahead, they have some snowball going, it's not going to be impactful enough because the rest of their picks are just too weak in order to impact the game. So I say it once again, Azir is not a bad blind pick in the sense that in this game he's going to survive and not fall too far behind unless G2 play a very strong early game. It's more about the point of what is the purpose of Azir if he's not going to outskill the enemy post 20 minutes. It's just not good enough. And then Lee Sin, Xerxes, we spoke about it. Lee Sin has very little to play through besides bottom. Lee Sin Azir is not the crazy 2v2. Sure, you have options, but LeBlanc is very slippery, so it's all about LeBlanc makes the choices here. Aatrox, there's no purpose for Aatrox here at all. Imagine we were in a world where Karthus was locked in. Let's say this is Karthus, GP, and then let's say mid laner, let's say Rumble, you know? Something that can just push and ignore mid wave and just look to impact bottom, you know, just let's say we pick this entire comp to just fuck bot, you know. That's a good plan into Ezreal Yuumi. Let's continue into the game. This game was done very fast and quick. I think the key thing to highlight is there was an opportunity here where Nukta could build an advantage because here he managed to get the freeze. Let's step a little bit back, because here Nuktak went for a good base. He got the wave into turret. He has TP advantage. These are the key things you want to look at. TP advantage. Let me just move my camera. TP advantage. He wants to look to build an advantage with it. Here, Perks is calling for Jankos to push in. And here, Nuktak needs help from Xerxes in order to make sure to freeze this. Because look at Nuktak's timer. Perks needs to base. He's out of mana. He's completely doomed. Right? He's completely doomed. And now if Nuka gets to freeze, he's going to build a decent advantage. He has TP as well. He's going to continue to build a CS advantage. But instead, you know, Xerxes is doing golems. He hasn't based yet. And with some interaction from Perks here, it manages to unfreeze because these melee creeps are not cooperating. Because this melee creep slipped through and now it's all of a sudden freezing towards Perks instead. So with no assistance from jungle, Azir cannot walk up too far. This was also a key moment because a lot of key flashes have been burnt here. The upset flashes, tries to root caps, flashes out of range, the root doesn't land. So this is very good. Next thing that comes up is a gank onto Azir that ends up in a 1-for-1. Nuktak TP's back. So this was very nice gank here from G2, showing that their 2v2 mid lane is not to be trifled with. Strongest one in Europe by far. Very good execution on the gank. Nuktak needed to burn flash and EW earlier. He queued on the wave so he couldn't gain that distance. But the timing overall, the timing of Trundle showing up was beautiful because by the time he showed up, it was too late to react to flash away from the chain. So this was very nice. Destiny, as we mentioned before, has Prime on bottom side, can do things freely. So OG, the key thing they need to find is timings to impact bottom. So when the wave crashes into the turret, they need to be there to do something. When they look to freeze, they need to be there to do something. But there was a massive disconnect between Xerxes and his teammates this game. This is another kill from G2. Very nice execution. Nuktak burned flash from before. Jankos understands his damage number super well because I thought when I was watching this that Nuktak was safe. And all of a sudden, everything begins to crumble. G2 have this priority in mid. They can save bottom from any type of action as long as Caps and Mickey just wait for their mid 2v2 to come into bottom side. There is no option for OG to show any type of aggression. OG bot lane needs to find an advantage, but now Azir is too much on a back foot in order to make sure that LeBlanc and Trundle cannot impact bottom side. So all of a sudden this composition, G2 scale better obviously. It's also a composition that, you know, have also won the early game now. This game was settled very quick and early. I want to highlight and show the last fight here. Not the last fight, but the fight here at Rift Herald. Lee Sin is going to start it. And then the key itemization, you can see just the itemization timing here is just beautiful, and why G2 are so insistent on forcing this, because this looks pretty awkward. Jankos is going to be stuck in the pit. He's trying to get in there. It looks pretty strange. He's stuck in there, but you have to look at the items. Luden's Echo LeBlanc, Athene's on Yuumi, Sunfire Cape is finished on Maokai, all key items, while on the left side no key items have been finished. So Jankos is doing this masturbate here in the pit. He's just masturbating away, and G2 get the fight of their dreams, and they are ahead with the composition that's going to scale so much better, and the game is just over. So a lot of key draft issues that OG showed. They need to pick jungle very early on. Other than that, you know, very, very good play from G2 as well. I think Origin had some options to impact through bottom, but they just didn't take them. I think there is a disconnect between jungle and lane, and I think G2 showcased connectivity between jungle and lane, because Jankos Perk's execution on the 2v2 mid was honestly beautiful. And one of Origin's key issues for the longest time has been that Nuktak is pretty much ignored in mid, and he is always playing on his own. And I think Nuktak is a fantastic mid lane, honestly. I think Nuktak played pretty good considering his position and his role in the game. So to finalize this little review, why is Perks the best mid lane? I'll answer you, because his biggest weakness, what is it? I think he can play most styles. He can play a Lulu, he can play a LeBlanc, he can play an Azir, he can play all styles. He can play splits, he can play on mid. He just doesn't have a significant weakness. He's just strong at every aspect of what you expect from a mid laner. It's very hard to pinpoint something that is, you know, a significant weakness for Perks. Very patient in his play, very good synergy with jungle. That is just it's very difficult to complain about Perks. Also super clutch player. Yeah, in the biggest games, Perks tends to play even better. And that's why Perks to me is the best mid lane in Europe right now. Okay, so that's it for this review. This game ends, blah, blah, blah. Nexus, Pentakill, boom. Thank you so much for watching this short review of G2 versus Origin Game 1.